There you go. Harsh.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Find my agenda here. Pardon me. This is the January 4th meeting of the Ellsworth Planning Board. 7 o'clock. We have an announcement to make. First of all, I'll introduce the members of the board. I'm Darrell Wilson. I'm the vice chair.
Roger Lassard. Mike Howie.
Jim Barkhouse.
Our chairman is not with us tonight, so I'll be the presiding officer. We do have a quorum. It's an even number of people, so applicants for tonight just need to be aware that a tie vote is considered a denial, and you are allowed to not participate if you feel that's prejudiced against you. You don't want to risk a tie vote. You're welcome to, I guess, reschedule that appearance. Is that how that works?
Well, they could be heard, but then they could ask that a motion not
Okay.
go forward if
So
they
just-
feel the motion is not going well.
Oh, okay, so the applicants have that option when it's an even number of board members. But we do want to continue on with our business. Mr. Fink is just having some trouble, and we don't feel like it's really necessary for him to go to heroic efforts to be here tonight, so we're going to continue with that. First item on the agenda is the adoption of minutes from the December 7th, 2016 meeting.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the December meeting.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, moving on. The next item on the agenda.
I see in our packet we had the minutes from November.
Is there a reason for that?
Yes, this project that is coming up right now, the Main Estates project, was actually, the preliminary plan was from November, and they didn't come last month, so provided the minutes so that you know what happened during the November meeting. Also, we took a site walk the week after the meeting, I believe.
Those are in those,
The minutes are site walk is captured in the minutes.
In the minutes. Okay.
yeah, that was the site walk. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the final plan for a major subdivision titled Main Estates Phase 2. For Main Estates LLC, the proposal is to create 13 lots located on a 16-acre property off Sugar Way, tax map lot 33-4, 33-4-21 in the neighborhood zone. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Stephen Salisbury and Jim Kaiser.
Welcome. Please present to us what you have.
We've supplemented our application with a revised narrative, revised covenants, pick up some of the concerns the city staff had, and a new stormwater management calculations and report. The plan was revised to show a buffer along the north boundary line of the project to capture and treat the stormwater before it runs off the property. And that's the end of the changes we made to the application.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant? One question that I had is the debris, the construction debris from building on the road. Is there a notation or a plan or something of where is that gonna be dealt with on site, or is it gonna be taken away, is it gonna be buried, what are they talking about?
Taken off-site, ground up,
Okay, so it'll be removed then?
yes.
Okay. Are there questions from the city staff on the application?
I saw the memo that you sent about the well water.
Excuse me?
I saw the memo where you sent about the well water. You looked at 6 different wells,
Oh, yeah.
and they had no problems. So just that one person has a problem.
Okay, so, yeah, the site walk, there was a bit of review, I guess, of the stormwater, plans, we walked a lot of that. I don't think there's any outstanding questions from that. This is a public meeting. Would any member of the public like to comment on this application? Hearing none, I am going to close the public hearing. Just give me a second, I'm reviewing my notes. What would the board like to do with this application?
I move. Roger, much.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote on the subdivision entitled Main Estates Phase 2 and proposal to create a 13 lot located on 16 acre property off of Sugar Way, tax map lot 33/4 and 33/421, and it's in the neighborhood zone.
Okay, so the motion was for, to approve that.
Oh, I make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion, any other details you'd like to add, conditions? All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a preliminary plan, a major use site development plan, titled Building 250 Ellsworth Expansion Project for the Jackson Lab. The proposal is to create a 174,000 square foot laboratory with area and a central utility plant on 17.71 acres property located at 21 Kingsland Crossing, formerly the Lowe's Building, tax map lot 16-2 in the commercial zone. For someone representing the applicant.
There's a whole slew of us.
Ralph Fitzpatrick.
Norm Birdsell.
Sarah Nicholson from Woodard and Curran.
Good evening.
Good evening.
What do you have to say for us tonight?
So we're back after having been here in December. We were requested to provide some more information at that meeting. We've now provided that, and I think we're in good shape. So that meeting, that information included traffic study, some information about noise and odor, the sections for the site location permit that we're developing, and also letter from the water department. So all of that has been submitted and worked through to the degree that we could with the staff.
Okay. Just to sort of get things going on this application, because we're sort of in between, I make a motion that we find the application complete because of the items that we were delivered I think we can make that motion now that the application's complete. We
For the
considered
preliminary, right, yeah.
Yeah, for the preliminary plan.
Would it be well advised maybe to hold a public hearing before?
Yeah, I guess we can open the preliminary plan, open to a public meeting. Is any member of the public who would like to comment on the preliminary plan part of this proceeding? No, I don't see anybody, so thank you. I'm gonna close the public hearing. And now, I continue with my motion to approve the plan for completeness, the preliminary. I'm sure I'm saying this right. Make the motion to determine that the preliminary plan is complete. That is my motion. Is there a second?
I will second that.
Is there any discussion? Any confusion? All those in favor of completeness? Okay. Step complete. So now, I guess our considerations are to be, to look at this from a final plan.
Right.
Are there questions for the board to the applicant about any items that they read or reviewed, anything that you need to have clarified?
I don't have any, I mean, they've talked about the water and having the 2 pumps or 3 pumps replaced, and you're working with the town on, or the city on that. Traffic study, my understanding that until you actually see the flow, you can adjust the traffic lights to help the flow of traffic in that area. And those were, for me, those were very explanatory. They told me everything I needed. I didn't have any questions on any of those.
So on this, may I
Sure.
say something? So you have in front of you a memo that was just issued tonight at 6:30?
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Nothing like a last minute thing?
But thank you,
Um,
Michelle.
Detailed
We do?
memo, I would like to know.
So I'm gonna explain what happened is that, there was some back and forth with the traffic study because, it was impacting the level of service in, and also the signal, the traffic signal. There was an automatic review that happens. That review was conducted, we were stuck between the holidays and a lot of things. And the idea was to make sure that it's just another set of eyes, basically. You should have 2 studies. There was a first study that was given to you. There was a follow-up study with more count. I believe that was in the original package.
They have a letter.
This here, the memo has Sebago Tech's comments. Do you need this?
I'm just trying to find it, see if I
I have
have it.
several copies.
I think she left copies on the table for
We
us.
pushed a button.
It looks like
Different.
this. And then the second page says Sebago Tech.
Yeah, I don't seem to have that.
It's coming your way.
I got
There's,
it.
Yeah, there's gotta be an extra copy.
Thank you.
There.
So to make a long story short, everybody kind of agreed that the counts should be looked at again. And Sebago Tech kind of brought to the table that you can't look at a signal in isolation. You have to look at a signal and how it interacts with our other signals, which are integrated with these signals. So instead of kind of making this a long, ongoing situation that's not necessarily resolved, we kind of agreed between the 2 parties that the city, they would give us some money, and the city would purchase a camera, and that I think it's called a smart grid camera. And that camera, basically what it does continuous counts. Every day, all day long, every day, every week, all day long, it counts the traffic. But more importantly, we can adjust the timing and the phasing of that traffic signal from Jason's office. In addition to that, we can also see what's going on at that traffic intersection. So if there's a backup, there's an accident, if something happens, we are able to go into the system and change things and adjust things if needed. So what that's gonna do is that camera will help us integrate better with the other signals. So for us, it's a win-win. For them, they have a closure to this situation and they can move forward. So tonight, that's what's in front of you. So it would not require them to do anything else in the future.
Where is the camera?
The camera would be, the camera hasn't been purchased. It would be purchased and installed at the signal.
At what signal facing?
A Myrick and Kingston,
Facing north or facing south?
all faces, faces
Oh,
everywhere.
so it's a
more than-
camera system.
Yeah, yeah,
Monitor that entire
Correct.
intersection.
sorry,
This is the same one you got down here?
correct, the one we
Yeah.
just purchased.
Just like down on Main Street.
And if anybody that comes from the Bucksport Surrey Road right now should have seen an improvement in how that flows in the morning.
So you have some sort of software interface to that now, to that whole network?
Correct. I think that Jason that's looking maybe want to come here and answer questions. He will be here in a minute.
Well, the question is the system is already integrated, you have control over all the timing
Of, with signal.
of all the traffic lights that are in the
He's coming.
scope?
I can't answer that.
We will now.
So eventually, is it gonna be for the whole city? All our, like Main Street and all that? Is that the way we're gonna go?
We're working towards getting everything connected. Right now,
Okay.
the Shaw's South, those are all integrated together. We
Oh.
have remote access to those systems now. This camera would be added into that existing system, and we're working on. Right now, we don't have remote access to Main Street, but we're working on that as well.
Yeah.
So eventually, they'll all be integrated together, and we'll have remote access to
Including the
those.
one by the new high school entrance road.
The high school,
Oh, yeah.
the new high school
So
intersection.
all
will
major
also have-
access points will be covered.
And that access includes being able to change the
Yeah.
timing of those?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can. We have access, and as well as Sebago also can remote access that as well.
So you do real time?
Yeah.
So
It's a good
he-
thing.
here's the question I have about that intersection in Myrick. There was a lot of development planned there, and so the northbound Route 3 is already at service level D today? On purpose?
What do you mean?
If I read the report right, if you go and look at the service level of northbound left turn off of Route 3, it says service level D. And that's what started all this, right? That went from D to F,
Okay,
if there
so
was no change?
the counts that they're, so let's go, I'm gonna go back. I'm not a traffic expert, but I'm gonna go back. So the traffic that they're using, and I'm gonna give you a bit more information.
Thank you.
I can come back if you need me.
The traffic counts that are being used include what I call phantom trips. Phantom trips are trips that have been purchased and bought, but are not necessarily on the system yet. So WS, when they did the development, they had trips. Those trips triggered offsite
What is
mitigation measures.
WS?
WS is all around the development that should be taking place around Home Depot and the Super Walmart.
Oh, so all those vacant lots are part of WS. Thank you.
Correct. So these trips are what I call phantom trips. They've been purchased, improvements have been made to the system to purchase capacity, but you don't see those trips yet. So when the next person comes in and they trigger traffic movement permits and other traffic count that they have to do, traffic study, they have to account for all the trips that are exist or don't exist, haven't been built. We call them non-built. Okay, or phantom kind of gets the message across. So when Diane did her thing, she's looking at level of surface based on all the trips that are permanent on that system. Okay. You can have a TMP, you can lose it if you don't do the improvement, but we're talking about things that are been purchased and bought out or are still,
Including the Lowe's site that Jax is converting.
correct. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, so the timing is going to be based on real trips, not on phantom trips. So the level of service, if she said there was a level of service D, that's based on phantom trips. It's not necessarily based on what's happening right now.
Or another way to put that is full build out.
Okay, so that answers one of my questions about, we're accounting for this full build-out in these
Correct.
calculations. The report that I read said that we are purposely taking northbound Route 3 left-hand turn and giving it a much longer time to relieve everything else at that intersection.
Okay, so that's where, when a consultant, when someone does a traffic study and start talking about timing and phasing of our signal, that's where we step in. We said, okay, you've done your job, you're saying that's all feasible. We're gonna verify all this, and we're gonna make sure that someone can say, oh, yeah, you're gonna maintain a level of service because I'm gonna give a lot more time to the lateral. That's not not be in our best interest, because we wanna keep mobility on the corridor, the main corridor. So what I'm saying is that usually they would have to pay to make sure that we integrate and all the signals are working together. The timing, the phasing that they want to give a certain phase is adequate and will be in the benefit of the entire system, not just one intersection. What we're saying is, Jax, we're not worried about that right now. We'll take care of it. What is going to be a better benefit to us is have the ability to do continuous counts. So when people can, or development, they can use those counts, we know what's going on, we know where it's jamming, and then we can hire a firm as needed, as Sebago Tax, to help us reorganize things if things are not going the way we need it to go. You know, we can do adjustment, but sometimes you have to do modeling to see what's going on as a whole
Okay.
with real counts.
My concern is that in the evening, in the summertime, northbound Route 3, that left-hand turn lane, if you've said, okay, I'm just gonna let people sit here just to give everybody else a good level of service, how much room is in that left-hand turn lane? Is it gonna stack up to the point where it goes back to one lane? And what you're telling me is that you can watch that camera, and when that lane stacks up enough so that nobody can get by, because everybody's waiting to turn left to go into Dunkin' Donuts on their way back from the island, you can make an adjustment to mitigate that. And that Jack's Labs.
What I'm saying is that the modeling that Diane Morabito did, and that was revised by Sebago Tech, verified that there would be no situation that would create major jams at those intersections under the modeling. That's what I can say.
Okay,
I think she's agreeing with you.
okay, good.
I'm not a traffic engineer, I cannot. I know just enough to get myself in trouble.
Yeah, and I mean, this is all very technical. It blew my mind when I started trying to read it all. So, Jack's involvement with this is the camera and this peer review.
Correct.
That's what they invested in. Okay. Does anybody else have another question? I do have one last area that I'd like to talk about.
Clarification from my chief. I have a question for clarification from my chief
Okay.
regarding the water supply letter that Jack submitted. He just had, for clarification purposes, in the letter, they indicated working with the city engineers. I think the intent there was Woodard & Curran, is that who you're
Correct.
talking about?
Right.
Okay. He wasn't sure what was intended there. And then the other item that he had a question was based on the statement, we understand the upgraded pump will provide sufficient water. And he was looking at Larry's letter in that Larry indicated it appears a full replacement would be required. He doesn't say that it will meet, but he says it appears. So I guess the question that Chief has is the statement that it will provide is going to be based upon the engineering study from Woodard & Curran that it will provide, or how? Just for clarification from him.
So, Larry has asked the water engineers at Woodard & Curran, so I'm at Woodard & Curran, but I'm not in that group, to proceed with preliminary engineering and to develop a cost estimate that will verify the the full scope of the situation there. But there is a model of the entire water system for Ellsworth. And so based on the kind of the conceptual tinkering with the model, it looks like that the squeeze point is that booster pump station, and that the pumps are just too small, but by upgrading, by putting in larger pumps, and work that might be associated with that will allow enough water to flow and to be able to provide the required.
Okay, so that's based on what Woodard and Curran engineers have come up with.
Right,
Okay.
exactly,
That's
yeah.
all
And so
we
Larry's
need
letter is reflecting input from,
from your folks. Okay.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I needed to
Okay.
relay to him. Thank you.
So
All
the
set.
applicant commits to solving that issue, and we're gonna move from, it appears to we are gonna solve that flow issue.
Well, I think what we're comfortable with at this point, because we don't know the extent of what that is, the initial determination is that we can replace the triplex pump system. Where we get a little bit nervous, and I'll say I get a little bit nervous, is what are all the things that bolt to that now have a trickle down? Is the building now too small to accommodate a new pump system? Is the pipe coming into it now too small to accommodate this and that? What we'd like to commit to is funding up to $50,000 at this point, and agreeing to work in good faith with the city if we find out that the volume exceeds, the cost for the improvements exceed that.
Okay.
Because we just don't know what all the spider web issues on this are right now. For what we know today, it's a triplex system that we should be able to replace for that amount of money or less, and we would commit to do that.
Okay, thank you. Is the city comfortable with that?
To the 50,000 or to what's in the letter?
To the fact that Jack's agreed to put a financial cap on addressing the issue that's in the letter.
I can't respond to that. Maybe the manager can. I can say that it's clear that to all parties that the capacity that exists is not sufficient to take care of their peak capacity, I think, if that's correct. And that they're committed to, they won't be able to function, so they're going to have to do something. The idea was that
Okay,
while
and
you have,
they've committed to doing something, and I guess
Absolutely.
my question is if that turns out to be not enough, where does that leave the city?
I think they just want the city, that Larry Wilson won't turn the water on. The thing is, I think it's clear that from both parties that there's an interest to make this work, and that
Okay,
something needs to be done. But what happened is Larry gave a letter that he said that there wasn't enough capacity.
sure.
What I asked is Jackson Lab to say, okay, do you agree that you need to create capacity? So their letter is saying, we agree that we need to create capacity before we can open, because we understand that what's there is not sufficient
Okay.
to create the capacity that we need. And that's the understanding that there is at this point.
The upgrading of the
Is that fair to say?
right, I mean, there is this question about exactly how much it costs, and as Fitz said, what are all, I mean, if this was a pump station that had been put in last year and it really just needed the pumps swapped out, then it would be easier to know what the extent of the cost was. And so that's not, my understanding is that's not the case. It's not a brand new pump station, so there may be other things that come along with that, and you know, clearly there's benefit to both parties for that system to get upgraded. And
Yeah.
so the question is, what, you know, is it 100% on Jack's to do that upgrade, or are there benefits that accrue to the city, and including, you know, pretty substantial income from the fee? So just wanting to not wanting to be with, since the cost estimate hasn't been done yet, no one really knows the answer.
I guess
And that was
my-
what Larry asked us to do, was to get that cost estimate done, so then we would be talking about
Correct.
real.
One thing
Real
that was
amounts.
clear too, I just want to make sure that that's on record, is that there's a certain capacity that exists right now. Because your follow-up application got a letter that there was enough capacity. So I think that Larry is looking at getting something done against the capacity that he has right now in the system there, if that makes sense.
Is Jax comfortable with the agreement with the city? I mean, you're putting up the 50,000, but it could go to 100, you don't know.
Well, I think what we're looking for at this point is just a little upside, and I'll exaggerate for effect here, but if we find the deficiency goes all the way back to Branch Lake, then I think we're gonna struggle with this a little bit.
Yes, understandable.
If it's the triplex system and an electrical feeder to the building, I think we can probably massage that, but we've got an open-ended issue. We don't have enough capacity. Here's a proposed solution, but it has all these attachments to it. And what we'd like to do is, like I said, and put some sort of upset limit on it for the agreement, agreeing to come back and negotiate with David and the rest of the folks in the town to do what we can to make it right. But let's be realistic about what this project is incurring for impact to the system.
I can respect the applicant and want to control its risk. The cost of the two pumps just themselves, I mean, do we have an estimate of what that would be? No.
There were no
There's
numbers.
3 pumps, yeah, there's 1, 7,
And
and
2 10s?
2 10s, I think.
I mean,
Okay,
I
so,
want to put that in order of magnitude. I mean, we've set a limit of 50,000 just for those pumps. What is, do you know what the cost of that
how
would be?
how does our decision play into this? I mean, we're the planning board. I mean, clearly there is a plan. The plan hasn't been finalized, but this is about water capacity. The water department head has already said that the system can use, he's provided a letter that the capacity is there. And he's
There's
just-
not enough, there is some capacity that exists. There's not enough capacity to provide their peak times demand. Is that correct? Okay.
In terms of pumping capacity you're talking about, right?
I mean, the letter says that with the pumps upgraded, with the pumping station upgraded with larger pumps, that the capacity is
Can
there.
be
So there's
provided.
enough water in the supply. You know, you've got the lake, so there's enough there. And you know, off the cuff, that to just replace the pumps, the $50,000 should readily cover that.
But from where I sit, I cannot like advise you to that amount is not something that I have the ability to talk about.
And I don't feel
And
like,
I'm not sure if it's your responsibility as well.
I'm not sure that the planning board can say, yeah, $50,000 is
I
fine.
think we're covered in the sense that we have a letter from the department that says, okay, we have an issue, and we have a response letter from the applicant saying, we understand you have an issue. I think that's
And I'm hearing
kind of,
a step beyond that. I'm hearing the applicant is willing to work on that issue.
Correct. and that's what that letter,
So it feels like there is an agreement sort of in place until we get to know more. And I'm not sure that we want to hold up the approval of the application until you guys find out what the dollar amount is.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's an issue that they can't resolve and we need to come back to plan, which I don't think you have jurisdiction really over those amounts and those details. I mean,
goodness.
you are agreeing with the department saying that you don't have capacity until you, Jax, make some improvement. The details should be worked by staff and, you know, and the manager.
Okay,
Okay.
yes, sir.
I just reiterate that, obviously, we're gonna work in good faith with Jackson Lab. And I fully appreciate they don't want an open spigot on this, so to speak, you know, and search for a cost-effective solution and all. So,
Okay.
I'm comfortable.
It sounds like there's a pretty solid agreement, you
Yeah.
know, sort of in place right now to deal with this.
Yeah, to work
Yeah.
together on it. Okay.
Okay, the other question, to change topics, are there any more questions about the water supply issue? The only other thing that I was looking at in the lighting plan was about the entrance, and I read the report that you guys, about the lighting considerations and the decisions that you made. The entranceway, what defines what are the ground boundaries of the entranceway? Is it written in the ordinance that an entranceway is 10 by 5?
It's non-negotiable.
How did you draw that boundary?
It's basically based on what, you know, as you're approaching the building, sort of when you're at the place where you're, you know, you feel like you're standing in front of the front doors.
You're gonna navigate the portal in some
Right.
way, or
Right.
pass by somebody who just went
Right.
through the portal.
right. So the architects essentially made a determination about what they felt would be,
So it's an arbitrary.
it's arbitrary, because
Uh-huh.
there's nothing in the ordinance that defines it.
And so,
And it's actually, it's, according to the architects, the electrical engineer, the architects, it's a high light level. So, they didn't want to have that extend a lot and had to put some extra lights in, more than they probably would have done, more than they would have done if it wasn't for the ordinance. So that's just information, it's fine, and it's good, but I'm just to let you know that there was some concern there. But so the area where you're interacting with the front door is highly lit
okay,
and meets that standard.
all right. Are there any other questions from the board or members of the staff about the application? Any outstanding concerns we haven't covered? This is a public meeting. Does anybody from any member of the public wish to comment on this application? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. What would the board like to do with this application?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the final plan for a major use site development plan titled Building 250 Ellsworth Expansion Project for the Jackson Laboratory. Proposal is to create a 174,300 square foot laboratory and central utility plant on a 17.71 acre property located at 21 Kingsland Crossing, formerly the Lowe's Building, tax map 16/2 in the commercial zone.
Is there a second?
Well, I'd like to put in that, with regards to the water, I mean, that the city and Jackson Labs are gonna work that contingency out.
Okay, are you,
We know that, we've been told that.
With the
there's
understanding
any-
that the arrangements have been
Right.
made. Correct.
okay, so we amend that motion to include that. Is there a second to that?
No second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries.
Great.
Thank you all very much for the last 6 months, both phase 1 and phase 2, and look forward to seeing you in 421 days when we cut the ribbon.
March 3rd,
March 3rd, 2018.
TikTok.
Thank you, everybody, for your attention.
We're gonna go
It's
start
been a-
working on
Been
it
a
now.
pleasure to work with
You
staff.
didn't say a thing.
Also.
Nope.
Been fantastic.
I was gonna say, that
They're
left
saying yes.
that left-hand turn, they can go to Dunkin' Donuts or they can come and buy our mice. But
All in a day.
Good, yes, we'll keep those
Thank-
cameras trained on that, make sure that those people are
That's
getting.
right.
thank you all.
Thank you all very much.
I'm seeing an item on this agenda that's crossed out.
Yeah,
Is that
they
correct?
pulled out.
Okay.
Without prejudice.
Okay, next item on the agenda, we are skipping item number 5. Was this published in the newspaper like this?
Yeah, they literally called 4 o'clock today, but they
Okay.
said table.
Table, and so do I need to deal with this
Yep.
item number 5 in any way on the record?
Nope.
So nobody's
It's
here?
like it's non-existent.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
All right, so we're moving on to agenda number 6, preliminary plan for a major use site development plan and a major subdivision entitled Hong Kong Fat LLC for Hong Kong Fat LLC. The proposal is to construct a 9-unit apartment building on 1.8 acre property located on Kingston Crossing, tax map lot 16/7.3 in the commercial zone. Is there someone representing the applicant?
Andrew McCullough representing the applicant. And I'll summarize the application. The plan is to construct a 9-unit apartment building similar to a couple other apartment buildings that we permitted earlier this year. On this Lot 3 of the subdivision, that was created in 2005 and 2006, off Kingsland Crossing. The lot has 100 feet of road frontage on Kingsland Crossing. It's about 1.8 acres. The property is served by city water, city sewer. So this building will be connected to both city water and city sewer. The building will have a sprinkler system to provide fire protection. We have designed an access road. I'm calling it, it's the driveway, the entrance driveway. We have designed in accordance with the site road standards in the ordinance. The parking lot will be paved. We have provided more than the required number of parking spaces for the number of units. For that road, I believe it's 11-foot travel lanes, 3-foot shoulders. We have also included in the second submittal after the TRT meeting, we included a vertical profile, proposed vertical profile. It's a relatively flat road, so to speak. A couple other things, and I think a couple items to note that we did try to respond to in the supplemental information is we do have letters from Larry Wilson regarding water. We have a letter from Mike Harris regarding sewer. And we do have a letter from Mike Hangy, and we've been working with Mike Hangy also regarding the site layout for access for emergency vehicles and turning. One of the items was, now I won't say it was in question, but to expand on my stormwater summary, which doesn't include what you typically see as far as complete stormwater calculations. Typically, you would see, it's stormwater treatment measures, et cetera. The reason for that was, one, I had obtained copies of the submittal, the stormwater submittal for the original subdivision that had all the calculations. And in the preface, or right in the beginning of that, it summarized, it stated that for the developed condition, that the stormwater system was sized for full build-out of the subdivision, including build-out on the lots. And so I did summarize that in the short, relatively short stormwater narrative that I provided you. But the copy of the report did not have the plans that showed where all those subcatchments were, flow paths, etc. So all the calculations were there. It's a 2-inch thick book or what have you. But I didn't have the plans. Michelle and Jana were able to find the plans that were referenced, SW101 and SW102. And so I reviewed those, and that showed that in their assumption, they assumed that the subcatchments in that area were 90% impervious. So that would be, 1.5 something acres out of 1.8 acres, or 1.6 acres out of 1.8 would be impervious. We're way below that. So based on that information, I feel more than comfortable saying not only, does this summary narrative state in the original application that was addressed, I believe it, we have good evidence that was the case. They weren't assuming 50% impervious or 40% impervious or something like that. So I think that's important to be on record. When Michelle and I had talked the day that I came up to review those plans, and we talked about also adding a note on the final plan that is submitted to you for approval stating that this lot was assumed to be 90% impervious for the developed condition, so that if there's future development on this lot, that we come back in, that you are aware that it's memorialized in a way that's very evident that, oh yes, this was assumed to be 90%. Right now it's at 35% or 38%. So there's room to allow further expansion, provided that we meet, the lot coverage standards, et cetera. So that's one way that we at least discussed as a way to memorialize that. And that would be fine. I think that would be that makes sense for, I think, everybody, for you as well as for the applicant. I have, and I've tried to characterize, or I've tried to relay my request for a waiver. And my one waiver is a request that we meet the lighting standards that we used for this particular, or this apartment building, so to speak, earlier this year. And we used the Night Sky Society standards, and those standards are less than the standards. I believe they're a safe and adequate standard. They are less than the standards in this urban core area. But I think they're applicable to this type of development as we've used them on East Main Street. And also from the standpoint of there is a significant amount of light already in this vicinity, and I don't really want to add more than is necessary. And so I think this is a reasonable utilization of standards that we're familiar with for this type of application. And so that's why I have included the table that is the same table, the same lighting standards that we used for the A&J Rentals application. I referenced that plan because as far as the building and one half of the parking area, the aisle and the parking stalls, it's the same dimensions. And so I have shown the fixture layout on my site plan following that layout that we had presented last year now. So I think, or not I think, those were a couple of the highlight issues that I felt I needed to maybe relay better to you, or discuss with you. Beyond that, I think that most of the application is pretty straightforward.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have questions for the applicant about those items or any other things that caught your attention?
Initial comment, this has got to be one of the busiest maps I've ever seen.
Has a lot on it. It does, and I mean, you're right, and there's a lot of data because from the topo, we have adjacent stormwater features. We've tried to show existing utilities. We've tried to show existing traffic layout. We have a lot of entrances right in that area. You're right, there is.
With that said, though, I really did like your summary down the legend regarding the actual dimensions and then the allowed use side. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
And the question I have is the discrepancy between the road frontage. Is that just a geographic fit? It's 4 feet.
Right. No, it is on the, it is legitimately 100 feet, and I will change that.
Okay.
Yep, on the recorded plan, it is 100 feet,
Okay.
yes.
Are there questions from the staff or concerns you would like to
Yep, we'll
address?
start with lighting. So you did not resubmit a correct lighting plan, right? You still need to submit a lighting plan that shows, that is specifically for this site. Is that correct? Is that your intention?
Well, my intention is to utilize the plan that we used on East Main Street.
Okay, so I have someone have a problem with that. I think it's confusing, but if the board, so the lighting plan that was submitted is for a development that has the same layout, but is basically doubled. It's like a mirror development that happened on Washington Street.
But I can do that.
It's up to the board. I was very confused and it took me, actually, I didn't figure it out until I talked to you what was going on. Regardless what the board wants to do, can we put the lighting standards and what's being proposed in a tabular form? I believe you have what you're proposing, but you don't have the standards that you need to meet from the ordinance. As Mr. Howie just pointed out, when those are provided in tabular format, it's much easier to see, and it's also required by the ordinance. So that's all we have for lighting.
Okay.
Do you want me to move to something else, Mr. Wilson?
Yeah, if you have other items that you'd like the
Okay.
applicant to address, please.
I'm going up for some reason. I'm going in the reverse direction. The applicant came, someone from the applicant's
Oh.
team came in.
The financial capacity.
Yes,
Did they
correct.
bring in that?
No, so we
Okay.
still need a financial capacity letter. I can't talk about water and sewer. Did Larry and Mike did they respond to?
Yeah, they were in the
Okay, so
packet.
okay, perfect, I just wasn't sure. The road, can you, we had talked about making sure that the entrance was gonna be paved, and then I asked you if the road was gonna be paved, yes, you said the parking lot was gonna be paved, but can you put a note saying that the parking lot is going to be paved, or did I miss it? As Mr. Howie said, it is busy, but that's all right, I like it, I don't mind it, I just sometimes can't find what I need to find.
Crossword puzzle. It's like, all right.
I know, I should say I don't always have the patience. If that's the driveway, it doesn't say that's gonna be paved.
No, we can.
Just wanna make sure that we're all on the same page, and
We can highlight that
that
better.
would be awesome, it's simple, and then,
And I'll put it in a box.
in tabular form, the parking standard and what is being proposed, that also would be awesome, and that's also part of the ordinance. But beside that, we have no issues as this is being presented.
Tab format for parking.
Okay, so, yeah, it's a preliminary plan, so our purpose here is to provide a review of what we feel is completeness, and then the items that we're giving to you could be addressed in final plan.
They can, and I apologize, the general contractor, or the contractor was charged with bringing in that financial capacity letter, and he didn't, so I will follow up with him on that. I mean, as, if that's a condition of fine.
So,
If-
but, so I was gonna say, as part of like the preliminary completeness, that's the only thing that's truly missing. It's not that big, just,
Okay. Before I deal with that, I do have a question about the stormwater. So the stormwater has this assumption that these catch basements are gonna drain in a certain direction. It's your intention to drain this property the way that it depicts in that other development?
It is,
Or there's just no other option than to drain it the way they've shown?
well, it makes, if we don't drain it the way they've shown it, then we would have to treat it. Okay, because it wouldn't be going into the system.
Okay.
Okay, so I have developed a plan with the basins and the piping to get it to that system.
Okay.
Okay. The way the topography lays on the site, it drains in what I would say, or it naturally is graded toward the west-northwest into a wooded area. But again, if it was just allowed to go that way, it would not get treated unless we built our own system. So by designing the grading plan and then the basins to collect the water, then it does go into the existing collection/treatment system.
Is there an easement or something that's already?
There are, yeah, there are.
So that's your intent then?
Yes.
To leverage that?
To leverage it, yes.
And that's probably gonna be key in us being able to say, we wanna use this 90% impervious memorialized.
Yeah, oh yeah,
previous plan.
definitely.
Okay, so that is something I think in final plan that will make a point of saying that
Mhm.
we're gonna use that because you're following it and that's where that water's gonna go.
Yeah. There are multiple easements here, Daryl. There's easements there's an easement across this property for the entrance, for Jax's entrance. There's an easement for where the water and the sewer utilities come across to the property.
Okay.
And then there is this stormwater easement down around to the detention pond. And so yes, there are multiple easements here, some on this property, some on Jax's property, that to benefit each, if you will, for these different utilities.
And that doesn't make a lot too small then to be that buildable unit that you need for those structures?
No, I mean, actually, a couple of the, the big easement is the stormwater easement, and that's on Jax's property.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
So that's granted to you.
so that's granted to, yes, and others in the subdivision, like,
Yeah.
Darlings.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
There's a whole consortium.
But yes.
Okay.
So those easements, no, they don't really,
They're not in your way.
no, they're not in the way.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's completely reasonable to put that structure there. And you're gonna retain some of that, is it the wildlife sanctuary that's the back property line of that? Or is it the north?
The Stanwood Wildlife Sanctuary is still like 1,500 feet away.
And the property boundary it shares that with the sanctuary? Or am I?
No. The butter is the motel,
Okay.
okay?
All right, never mind.
So there's a couple properties there before you get to the,
All right, I was picturing it.
because
My apologies.
when I wrote to the historic preservation, I actually did using Google Earth to check the distance to the Stanwood Wildlife Sanctuary. I believe it's like 1,500 feet
Okay, and
Yep.
several properties.
and several properties, right?
Okay, good. So your intent for the lighting plan then is to propose that we use the criteria that we came up with before about the average man and the max
Mhm.
man.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that it's gonna meet the minimums that are in the ordinance? I mean, not the ratios.
I believe it meets I believe what we came up with meets or I believe it exceeds the minimums. I
But
believe
you're
it's-
not using the urban core standard, you're using the growth area standards, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's the big difference.
But-
Which is fine.
But I mean, what Michelle said is, you know, in the table, I will put what the ordinance requirement is.
Okay.
So that, you know, we can look at that as far as comparison.
Okay, yeah, I
Yes.
think that would be good to see that all in one place.
Right.
And make that determination.
Yeah.
I tend to agree with you about there's a lot of light
There's a lot of light there.
available, and trying to compete with that, I don't see the point. It's not a commercial, like, we're not trying to light something so that people go that way instead of that way. It's a residence, so.
I mean, yeah.
I feel like as long as there's safety and we're meeting some standard.
Right.
That's just how I feel about final plan.
No, I respect that. Because, I mean, you know, I walk out of my house on the Surrey Road at night and I can look over and I can see that light. I mean, that's the honest truth. So,
Okay,
So, Mr. Wilson, I have one more thing.
yes, ma'am.
I think that Larry Wilson wants a 5-foot easement around the hydrant.
He
that's
does.
next. Okay,
yes.
so you're aware of
Well,
that?
not around the hydrant, around the shut-off.
The shut
Around the
off.
shut-
Right.
Yeah, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that's
But-
correct.
More importantly, I think I would like there's a note on the plan that be put, this is really for final, that there will be no cross connection, vehicular cross connection with the property at, known as, I'm gonna call it Biddy's Hilltop. It's not that, but the property that used to be the Hilltop. That there will be no vehicular cross connection allowed unless they come back to planning board.
Why would you say that?
Because there is a memo that there's a TMP, that's traffic movement permit, that is on Dunkin' Donuts. There was a relationship an easement between the two properties.
Yeah.
The same owner now owns the Hilltop in that property, and there was a cross connection that was suggested to take away a connection that was between the Hilltop through Dunkin' Donut. More importantly, the DOT does not want to see that to happen. I have a memo from Bruce Mattson. We don't want to have 3 curb cuts within how many feet within?
So you don't want people coming off of Route 3 into the Hilltop location and continuing on to this development, is that what you're saying?
Correct, unless it comes back to planning board and unless the traffic movement permit is amended and that's all worked together. There's too much conflicts existing in a very small amount of space. That's 3 curb cut, I think it's 200 feet at
3 curb, what do you mean 3 curb cuts?
entrances, a curb cut and land entrances to
Where
land.
would those 3 be?
Dunkin' Donuts, the project that we're considering in Jackson Lab, that's all within, just trying to remember what the distance is, it's 200 feet, I
Well,
believe.
there, regardless of whether you cross-connect, there's gonna be 3 of them there now, right?
Yeah, but we only, the middle, the connection, the curb cut that's being looked at only provides for 9 apartments. That's very low traffic. That's,
Right.
we need to allow access to lots, but it doesn't mean that every lot needs to have a full access entrance. Right now, we're saying that if they're gonna do the apartments, a full access entrance is fine. But we're saying that if they're putting trips that were somewhere else onto that access, that's a different story. That triggers a whole different
Oh, so you
level.
want people going to that
Correct.
from a lot other than this?
Correct. Correct. So
You
there's
want that to
no,
be dedicated just to that lot?
correct. So this access that we're doing, this curb cut right now, this full access entrance is only to serve the 9 apartment units that is being proposed right now. In that there's not to be any cross connection with the other lot, the abutting lot that they own right now, that he owns the 2 lots right
Map
now.
16, lot 23, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, 1623, exactly, thank you.
No cross-connect, so
Yeah, I'd like to have a note on the plan.
what does the applicant think about that restriction?
I'd have to talk to the owner. I mean, we're not proposing it, so
There's
at
a
this point,
sidewalk
I
there.
mean, this is what's being approved, this is what's presented. So, I mean, I think that that stands on its own personally.
Okay, so,
I
yeah, they would
mean-
have to come back then.
I'm going to definitely advocate, in all due respect, there was a cross connection that was being proposed in the first iteration that you did not see. It's a great concern. DOT sent me an email afterwards and was clear about that. I just feel that for the well-being of the city, that would be a protection that's easily met, that no vehicular cross connection will be provided unless it comes back to the city, to the planning board.
So, plan on, at final plan, us saying that if you propose to, in the future, create a cross-connect, we're gonna have to look at it again.
I understand that.
So that would be a condition that we would put in final plan, would that be?
Yeah, if there's, all I'm looking is for a note on the plan.
Put that in the minutes, please, 'cause I'm not gonna remember that.
Currently in the plans, a proposed sidewalk connecting the properties, and then, okay.
We encourage that cross connection.
So I can read the map.
So are there other questions from the staff? This is a public meeting. Would any member of the public like to comment on this application? Hearing none, I will close the public meeting. So there is this issue of a missing item. How do we want to deal with the completeness? What did you say was missing?
Letter of financial capacity is very minor.
Do we do the same as we did with Jack's, as we table that? And okay it before the final?
Okay, so that missing submission seemed to be like a really critical, we need to review that, talk about it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
This missing submission, do we treat it in exactly the same way?
I
Or
mean-
do we make it a condition of our
Yeah.
approval that
Either
that
way.
appear?
Condition of the final.
Yeah.
I'd request that it be a condition on the final.
Okay.
The owner is an established business, and, you know, he purchased these 2 properties, so he's made a significant investment already, here, and I do not foresee any problems with providing that letter to you, other than it just,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we will transfer that as a condition to the final then at that.
They're aware of it, there's just an oversight
Yeah.
at this point.
Okay, yeah, it seems like
Technicality or formality.
okay.
It's important.
Is there any other discussion?
And you want the lighting on the plan also? Tabulous.
Well, for preliminary, he's got everything else. You know, it's just that it may not be the best thing, but for final, I think Andrew's fully aware that what he needs to do with the lighting.
Yeah, that would be an advisory for you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so what would the board like to do with this application?
I make a motion that we approve the preliminary plan for the major use site development plan and the major subdivision titled Hong Fong Fat LLC. For Hong Fong Fat LLC, proposal is to construct a 9-unit apartment building on a 1.8 acre property located on Kingsland Crossing, tax map lot 16/7-3, and it's in the commercial zone.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Is there any discussion?
Do we have to put in about getting that letter?
I think, yeah, we would
The next one we
amend,
need to,
you could potentially amend the motion to add a
With the
condition.
amendment that the conditions that they
the financial
show a letter
capacity.
of finance
At final.
at final. Correct.
Okay, so that motion, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.